Hey guys, thank you and welcome back to another episode of the Rep Path podcast. Today we have a great talk for individuals that are just breaking into the industry. So these are the common mistakes that sales reps make and how to avoid them when you start in the medical sales industry. Before we get into that, as always, guys, a couple of quick housekeeping. If you have any questions, please submit them into the chat and James, my producer, will handle all those questions, which we'll address about halfway through the show. And just if you do want a recording of this podcast or any previous podcast, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching, so you could see all my content on that channel. And as always, we're going live today on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and we're on every possible podcast platform. So just to jump right in, guys, the first year in medical sales after you start, you're very excited. You broke in. That pain in the ass process of trying to break in for months and months and months, sometimes years for some reps out there, is over. You're all excited. You got your first role. And now it's like, okay, what the heck do I do? You don't want to call your manager for every question you have, even though your manager will probably tell you, don't worry, reach out to me as much as possible. It's just, common sense. You don't want to be that needy sales rep. And then you also, don't want to constantly bother other sales reps on your team. So we're going to go over the top 10 common mistakes that sales reps make in their first year and how to avoid them. All right. And what are some of the things you should be doing to make sure you don't fall into some of these traps? All right. The first thing, most important by far, is the lack of preparation. A lot of you are going to want to get out there and just get in front of doctors and start selling. And that's great. You should be eager. You should want to get in front of them and start selling your product. That's a great quality to have that excitement, especially when you're starting a new role. Of course, you want to get out there and see, what are the doctors' real reactions? Who are the key players or who are the doctors that are going to be supportive and willing to use your product right away. So I was the type that would just be, let's get out there and just do it. That was my mentality. I'm just going to go, and sometimes that's good because it stops you from thinking too much and overanalyzing because you don't want to get paralysis of analysis. But you really should take your time, guys. Prepare. Make sure you're not just going and diving into these doctors' offices and getting in front of customers and just spitting out information and showing features and benefits without knowing enough about your customer. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying, spend 2 months after you get hired doing all research on physicians before you get, get your car started. No, but you do want to take time to research your physicians. The first thing you should be doing is find out who you're going to be calling on the first day in the field. It doesn't mean you're going to get in front of these people, but you should have your territory routing done for at least your first week, listing the 10 to 15 doctors that you want to get in front of each day. And I would do research and learn more about these physicians before you get in front of them. The first thing you do in terms of research is see what kind of call notes or any notes that any previous reps that are at your company, maybe your manager, there's information that you can get, from the people that are already working at your company, especially if someone called on those doctors before. So I want to speak to that rep that used to have that territory. It might not be possible if the rep got fired or left. They don't work at the company anymore, so it's a little harder. But if most companies should have some sort of CRM where they have the call notes, and look back at that, read the notes, see what they discussed. Again, could be challenging if reps are giving shitty notes. They're giving very generic, 1 or 2 lines just to check off a box. Obviously, it's not going to give you much value. But the next step is looking up that physician. First, start with LinkedIn, and then go into the more depth. Where does he have privileges? What hospitals does that doctor work out of? What studies is he a part of? And you can look this up just by, Googling the doctor's name. You could even chat GPT a lot of this information. So at least you have an idea that, well, wow, I see that he's doing a lot of work in, spine surgery, and you could look in the specific procedures that you see that he's a part of these studies or these papers. I mean, that's a great way to start. So okay, this is where his real interests are. This is, a hot button for that physician. So at least it helps you start gearing your presentation in a certain direction. But you must be doing the preparation, before you get out there. You also, something simple of mapping out where you're going. So you could write down, that I want to see Dr. Jones, then I'm going to see Dr. Smith, then I'm going to see Dr. Wallace and Dr. Williams, right? That's how you have your morning. Now, without mapping that out, Dr. Smith could be an hour and a half from Dr. Jones, and then another 45 minutes of Dr. Smith, and Dr. Wallace is another half hour. Map it out, guys, and make sure you have the easiest route. There's a lot of apps out there that are available where they can map out your route. So you want to make it the easiest route from office to office. You don't want to be driving from one end of the territory to another. And especially if you're working with your manager, this is key. Preparedness is key. You want to make sure your car is cleaned, you just got it washed, it's immaculate inside. Your trunk with all your promotional material, maybe your samples, whatever else you have, maybe your devices, organized, guys. Just like a home office should look, just like an office should look, where people can walk by every day. If you're in an office building, you're not going to have your shit all over the place. It looks unprofessional. It's disorganized. You want to make sure everything is buttoned up. Especially, you should do that anyway, but especially if you're starting out in your first couple of days in the field, could be with your manager. Because the first question he's going to ask is, where are we going first? And if you're not prepared, or if he sees that you're going from one end of the state to the other because you didn't even map out your route, it's a big red flag. So do the little things, guys, and have that route mapped out, and then also the research with the physicians. So at least you could tell your manager, okay, Dr. Jones, I know that he's really big into spinal cord stimulation. So I'm thinking about focusing the conversation about his low back pain patients. Now, again, getting into that conversation without even mentioning your product first on the first call, that's a well-prepared rep, because you're already gearing the conversation towards the doctor's needs, to what drives him or her, what kind of procedures they like to do, and so you could start focusing the call in that direction, as opposed to just diving in and say, I sell spinal cord stim. Here's a great thing about my product, and shooting features and benefits. And meanwhile, a doctor might not do that. So again, I think I beat this up. Preparation is key. Make sure you don't just go out there and wing it. Big mistake a lot of reps make. Next, just as important, talking less, listening more. So they have the 70-30 rule. All right. 70-30 rule is quite simply, listen 70% of the time, talk 30%. It's the same as an interview, guys, but this time you're the hiring manager and the doctor is the rep, is the candidate. That's the way you want to look at it. Who's talking the majority of the time during the interview? You were talking because you were getting hired. You were the employee going for the job. So the manager wants to learn more about you, wants to find out what are your needs, what are your, skills and everything else, learning more about you and your background to make a decision. That's the kind of approach you got to have with your physicians, where you're learning more about, it's about them. It's about their practice, their patients, what drives them. So you should be listening more and asking questions. If you find yourself during sales calls, especially those first couple sales calls, where you should be learning about the doctor. Again, I've said this on many calls in the past. Try that first sales call to not mention your product. It's going to piss your manager off. Okay. but let them know that that's your goal. Your goal is to find out as much as possible about that doctor and the doctor's needs. If you're talking the whole time, it's impossible to find out someone's needs. So you have to make sure that you're asking a lot of questions. So follow the 70-30 rule. Again, 70% listening, 30% talking. Next, you got to focus on um, on patient outcomes instead of your product. Okay. And a lot of reps, they get sucked into features and benefits, features, benefits. This is all we hear all day long in medical sales. What are the features and benefits? You'll be in training talking about your features and benefits. But if you don't make it, what does that mean for the patient? What are the patient outcomes? That's the key. It's not about your product is has got a steerable sheath that is great, and it's easy to maneuver. That's great. That's a feature. Okay. But what does that mean overall for the doctor, the patient, or the practice? What does that mean for them? That's the real value. What is the real value there? And the value could be, being able to do cases quicker, being able to do them safer. So it's patient safety. Quicker could be maybe doing multiple cases in a day where he might struggle doing one because he can't steer the sheath, and it takes him 2 or 3 hours, for a case, as opposed to it can only take maybe an hour. So now he can add on. So that's bringing in more dollars into his practice or into the hospital. These are the benefits that are not just tied to your product. So make sure you're not just constantly talking about features, benefits that only relate to your product. You have to relate it back to what the doctor really cares about, and that's his patients, the practice, and and obviously what's important to him, what drives him. Okay, sorry. Next is a big one that you may not think when you're starting out that you're going to ever do this, and again, it's real, guys. When you get out there, you don't want to start ignoring compliance and regulation issues. And you're going to say, Joe, I would never do that. I'm always going to be compliant. I would never, bend a rule or whatever. When you get out there and you have a number to hit, and you are tempted to do things to make the sale. Okay. The ethical reps out there don't make that bad decision and then sacrifice compliance or bending the rules with regulations. Guys, you can get in a lot of trouble. You can lose your job. Believe me, you never know who's watching. You never know if someone in the office can call your company, and say that you're doing something that's unethical because you get tempted to make the sale. Doctors sometimes unknowingly will ask you if you can do something, and you may be tempted to do it to get that sale, and it's breaking a company guideline. For instance, they could say, could you do that dinner next week at Ruth Chris, and you don't have the budget, or you're only supposed to spend $75 a head, and at Ruth Chris it's probably going to be 125 or 150 a head, but you do the dinner anyway. You submit that expense report, you're going to be in trouble. Okay. You could get in serious trouble. And a lot of these companies right now, they don't mess around. They're being scrutinized. They can be shut down just for a couple of infractions. So don't think they're going to have your back because they like you so much. I've seen the best reps at companies get fired because they don't pay attention or they bend the rules to get the sale. Do not do that, guys. Trust me, you're going to remember this talk. You're going to say, wow, Joe was right. I can't believe I'm actually thinking about doing this right now because I need to hit, I haven't gotten a sale yet. My manager's on my ass. And now I got to do whatever I can to make things happen. Don't fall into that trap. It's not worth it. You're going to wind up getting in trouble and it's going to be a nightmare, guys. So stay being ethical. Keep working your ass off. The sales will come. Next is follow-up. Follow-up, again, sounds simple. Of course I'm going to follow up. Trust me, you get busy. and you focus on the big follow-ups and ignore the little ones. When a doctor asks you, Joe, can you provide more information about, whatever product you're selling, and give me an additional study? I'll get right back to you. Don't worry, I'll get that over to you. And then before you know it, you have 50 different requests, and there's doctors that are going to be are current users that you've inherited from the previous rep. So you start focusing on them, and you can ignore this doctor because he's never used you yet. He's got low volume. You don't really want to, it's not really worth your time. And you start putting those follow-ups on the back burner. Believe me, guys, this is how trust is earned. This is how relationships are really built. So those stupid little meaningless asks that sometimes doctors ask you for, it might not even have to do with the product. It could be anything. It could be something stupid. You could be talking about sports, and they say, "Oh, I forgot who was the first baseman for the Yankees when they won the World Series in 09." And it could be simple. Follow up. It shows that number one, you're really paying attention to the conversation, and you care about that customer's needs. A lot of times, the reps have poor follow up. They get sucked in with too many cases that they're worried about, the scheduling, the administration work that they have to do. All this stuff that they have to do gets overwhelming. And sometimes they don't do well with the follow-up. Okay. So follow-up is key. Always get excited. When you don't know the answer to something, don't look and kick yourself like, shit, I should know that. Look at it as an opportunity, guys. That's another chance for a follow-up. So that's another reason to get in front of that doctor and answer that question or provide a solution, whatever the request was that you didn't know the answer to. Now it's a great opportunity to get out there and get back in front of that doctor. Okay, so follow-up is key. It's got to be a priority. I've definitely done this when I started. The next one is over-promising and under-delivering. Okay. I was the guy that said yes to everything when I got in the field when I first started. Yeah, we could do that. Hey, Joe, can we do a lunch, next week for 60 people? Yeah, 100%. I could definitely do that. Hey, Joe, also would like to do a dinner at, Peter Luger's 2 weeks after that with a couple of doctors that are all associates, that it would be great for business for you. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I could do. And you're saying yes, yes, yes to all these doctors. Okay. Joe, I would like to be a speaker at your company. Can you get me to be a speaker? Oh, absolutely. I actually did that once. Okay. I told one of the physicians, yes, I could definitely get you on our speaker bureau because he liked our product. Not to get into all the specifics at the time, but there was requirements that the company obviously has. And they have to vet out the physicians too, because you can't just have doctors go out there and speak about the product just because they like you and your product. There's much more to that. You also have to make sure, is this doctor, first and foremost, are they a good presenter? And I pushed and said yes. And because I started out, my manager at the time was a little more, understanding that I basically opened my mouth too quickly and said yes, wound up being a disaster. I wind up the discussion. I had a bunch of doctors show up, and the doctor was dumpster fire up there. I mean, he didn't even know the dosing when he started talking about the dosing of our medications. So that was a huge, huge issue, and that was my problem because I caused this. Instead of setting expectations, and just you could simply say, I would love to have you be a speaker, but there's a process that we have to go through. Let me forward this on to my manager and take the next steps, but I'm going to get right on it. That was the proper response, not, yes, no problem. Let's go out there and do it. That was a perfect example of over-promising and under-delivering. Make sure you're setting expectations, guys, no matter what it is, because you're going to want to appease people. You're going to want to make your customers happy. So you're going to say things. Don't say things that get you in trouble. Okay. It's easier to say, I'm sorry, we can't do that, or we don't do that. Don't always be the yes man because you think you're going to win people over just by yesing to death. It's okay. They understand. They probably asked you for whatever they're asking you because the last 5 companies told them no. Just realize that. So don't think that you're going to lose the business because a doctor asked you a request that you couldn't make happen. Odds are it's something that they're taking a shot, and most of the companies can't do it anyway. Can you throw our Christmas party and pay for it? It's a real thing that could happen. You want to say yes because this is a doctor that hasn't used you. He's giving you basically no attention. Finally, you got a lunch where now he's throwing this in your lap. You want to say yes. Guys, trust me. Be firm and say, whatever the company policies are, you got to follow that, because in the end, you're only going to hurt yourself, or again, you're going to overpromise and underdeliver, and it's going to be a disaster. Okay, so set expectations. This is a key one. Number 7 is neglecting internal relationships. Okay, so what does that mean? When you get in the field, you're going to feel a little lost. You're going to feel like you're on an island out there where you're on your own. You're in the car every day, but you start to get comfortable. So you could be doing well and say, you know what, this is great. I don't have to deal with my manager. He calls me a couple times a week. I don't have everyone else following me in the car this week. This is awesome. I'm good. I got a bunch of cases booked for the next few weeks. I was able to get whatever, if it's pharma, I already got a bunch of doctors prescribing my drug. I'm doing well. I'm okay. I don't need help, right? Or you think the opposite. I have to learn on my own because I don't want to annoy people. So I'll figure it out. Okay. Now it's good to figure some things out on your own, but guys, utilize all the resources that you have at your company. Build relationships. Now, first and foremost, with your teammates. Find someone on your team to be a mentor. Find someone that's doing well and has good daily habits. They're a high performer. Typically, high performers, there's a reason why they're a high performer. They have good daily habits. So start building good relationships with them and stay away from the negative crowd. Every company has them, guys. All right. You don't know who they are yet until you get there. But you're going to start seeing at every meeting, there's the same guys that meet up and go, oh man, this is such bullshit. Why do we have to be here? Oh, our company sucks. Our manager's the worst. And then you start building relationships with these people that are all great people. But I used to find myself talking to the same negative reps when I was in the car going from office to office. And it's a terrible place to be in because you start getting demotivated, and you don't want that. You want to stay with the positive crowd that's doing well, that's bringing the positive energy, that's driving revenue. That's first and foremost. You also want to utilize your relationships throughout other departments because you're going to need these people. Marketing, number 1, there's going to be marketing requests from physicians. You want to have those relationships built because trust me, just like any other place, the internal people they don't have the best relationship with everyone in the field. They have certain reps that they like working with because those reps, built great relationships. They're nice to them. They reach out. They ask them if there's anything they can do for them. Before you know it, now you have a group of these internal people from either marketing, biomed, HR, IT, all these different departments that if you have strong relationships with, you are going to be a better rep. Because when you get those requests and they get multiple requests at once, no matter if it's marketing or IT, who do you think they're going to first? The guy that they have the good relationship with or the one that never calls them? So make sure you're building those relationships with other departments. It's not just about sales. It's not just about your team. Your team is the company. So the more that you get to know all these individuals and build those relationships, the more attentive they're going to be for you and the better you're going to do, with hitting your number every quarter. Okay. So this is another key mistake, and that's being transactional instead of building relationships. And what does that mean, guys? you don't want to be you don't want to look at a doctor as a bonus dollars. Okay, because this happens a lot. You'll start to see, especially if say for device, you'll start knowing how many procedures a month a doctor does. And you say if a doctor does 10 procedures in your therapeutic area a month, and there's two other competitors. So at the very least, you want to get at least 3 of those procedures a month, and each one is worth 25,000, and that's an additional, say, 7,500 a month in your pocket for bonus. So you start looking at the doctors in that way, as dollars. I mean, it happens. You don't want to have that mentality though, and have it affect your relationship where it's very transactional. That's a transactional relationship where you're not actually building a long-term relationship. That's where the real value comes in. So, you want to make sure that you're being viewed as a trusted resource, that you're not just in there to do cases, get out and collect bonus checks. So make sure you're always focusing on that relationship. Have those conversations when the personal time does come, personal discussions come up about your family and sports and everything else. Guys, you want to take notes afterwards. Write down. This is where your CRM is very important. If you're using Salesforce, put a lot of that info in there. Because when you do your research, again, this full circle with being prepared, you go into that next discussion and you talk about, how was your daughter's communion, or how was the 50th birthday that I know you were telling me you had to go to? Those make people feel good, guys. I mean, when you're speaking to someone, and I know a lot of my friends that are very successful, they're great listeners. They remember things. They bring that up. Oh, by the way, Joe, excuse me, I know your niece just graduated from college. How's she doing? Did she get a job yet? Excuse me. So that makes me feel good because I know that we talked about that last time. And this is, it's just a relationship builder. So always make sure you're taking those notes. I'm not saying as a doctor speaking to you, you're sitting there like an on the field reporter writing down everything they're saying. But after the call, go to your computer, enter that information in. It's very, very valuable, guys. Okay. You don't want to go in there every day and just talk about personal stuff. And, that's ridiculous too. But someone that's thoughtful and appropriate in the timing of that, it goes a long way. So make sure you're building those long-term relationships. It sounds easy. It sounds simple, but trust me, guys, the job, you're going to feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose at the beginning. So a lot of these things, it makes you scatterbrained and you don't have that focus to do these things on a daily basis. So just always focus on continuing to build those relationships. And the last thing, guys, is, biggest mistake is the lack of resilience that you need in this job. Okay. Things are going to go wrong every day. Doctors are going to ignore you. Doctors are sometimes going to be mean to you. Okay. You're the 10th rep they saw today, and they just, God forbid, had a patient issue in the hospital. Now you're coming in here to talk to them about a product. They might not be the happiest person. They could have things going on in their family life, traumatic things that could be going on. You selling your new drug or device doesn't mean anything to them that day. They can not want to see you. You can just, in this industry, not see doctors during a day. No one wants to see you today. You start getting frustrated. You start going, screw this. This sucks. This is too hard. I can't take the rejection. Or even worse than rejection, the biggest issue is lack of access. So that lack of access, it wears on reps. That I can't get in to see this doctor. This is torture. I don't want to drive there anymore. What's the point? No one's going to see me anyway. These are real reactions, guys. You don't want that. You want to come in knowing I'm going to have a lot of problems today. And it's not being negative. It's thinking ahead. And again, going back to being prepared. Doctors aren't going to see me today. So what am I going to do? What's my plan to get in front of a doctor because no one's going to, I know if I walk in there, they're not going to see me again. So I got to have a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D. That's the way that you approach this. That keeps it fresh. That'll keep you resilient. And that's the key, is that you want to keep being as resilient as possible. Know that they're not going to break me. This job's not going to break me. There's going to be challenges every day. I'm ready for it. But here's what I'm going to do. And each time doctor didn't see me again, okay, back to the drawing board. I already tried plan B. Now it's time for plan C. And that's the way to really stay fresh, and you're going to be the most effective rep. So I'm going to shut up for a second and James, see if we have any questions from the crowd.
We got a couple, my friend. Let's see. What do we got? Joe, how do I balance product training versus account introductions without looking lost to customers?
So we're talking about someone that's still going through training and they're trying to balance their, okay, read that again. I'm sorry.
It is, how do I balance product training versus account introductions without looking lost?
Yeah. And they really shouldn't, if you're organized, they shouldn't affect one another. When so most companies, they're going to have you, for instance, I have a client it's a pharmaceutical client that has their reps do 2 weeks of home study. Then they do 3 weeks away at a facility of product training. So they're going to teach you everything. You're going to role play. You're going to learn all about the features and benefits of the products, all about the marketing material. And then after you're done, then you're going to go into the field. Okay. So simply they should not interact. They shouldn't affect one another. Now you may not be done with your product training. And when you're in the field, doctors could ask questions. You're always honest. Say, I just started out. I don't have the answer for that, but I'm going to get that answer for you. And again, getting back to the follow-up and being able to come back to answer those questions. But two of them should not affect one another, because your product training is going to be separate than when you get out in the field. So it's just doing your product training first. And if you're still not up to speed and you're still in front of doctors, always answer the question honestly. You don't know something, you're going to come back and give them that information.
What are 5 numbers I should be able to rattle off about my territory by week 4?
What are 5 numbers you should be able to rattle off about your territory? All right. All right. So we'll take a medical device rep. You 100% should know your quota. If you don't know what your quota is for the quarter, you shouldn't be at that company. All right. You should know the number of cases that it takes to hit that number, the number of doctors that it takes to hit the number of cases to do that, the number of calls a day that you need to be making to see the last is a certain number of doctors. So if I want to see, you're basically working backwards. This is like a very, I know a lot of my military friends, when they were in the Marines, they talked about this, how they approach problems and then work it backwards. So it's the same thing as, okay, what's your number, Joe, for the quarter? What's your quota? $1 million is my quota. Okay. So if I have to hit $1 million, that means I have to do 50 procedures to hit $1 million. If I'm going to have to do 50 procedures, that means I need at least 10 doctors using my product to hit 50 procedures. If I'm going to hit 10 doctors, that means I'm going to have to get in front of at least, 40 doctors a week and have 40 conversations. I'm making up these numbers as I go, obviously. And then lastly, to get in front of 40 doctors and have 40 conversations, that means I'm going to have to call on, make 200 calls that week. Again, these numbers are exaggerated, but I'm just going on the fly here. But those are the type of numbers that you need to know. You have to work backwards, but it starts with your quota.
We have Joe. What's the wrong way to handle a slump week?
Get pissed off, leave early, start drinking at a bar at like 12:30 each day, and start looking for another job. I mean, that's like the ultimate. It's the worst thing to do. About, I mean, I'm making jokes about going out drinking during the day, but I do know there's days that you want to do that. You go, oh man, I'm just having a horrible week. I just want to start over next week. So screw this. I'm just gonna call quits early. Or I can't even look at my promotional material. I can't even look at my Salesforce. I just don't even want to deal with this right now. You get in a negative rut. You don't want to do that. You want to break it up. If you have a bad day or a bad week, again, guys, good things are going to come, around the corner. There's ups and downs in sales. Nobody in any sales job says every day is awesome. All I do is sell, 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 and close, close, close. No, it's peaks and valleys. So if you know that, again, prepare yourself that you're going to have ups and downs. Prepare yourself that there's going to be challenges, but don't be negative about it. Already start thinking of like, okay, this is why the job is hard. This is why everyone doesn't do it. Because if they did, they would just hire someone else. They'd have 50 people waiting to go that can do this job well. It's not easy. So realize if they're going to pay a lot of starting reps, the average salary is close to six figures. It's very rare when you're combining, your base salary and bonuses to get a job that's almost six figures with a company car, with pay for your cell phone, entertainment, expense account, 401k, medical, dental, vision. I mean, these are amazing jobs that some people in other industries could work 20 years and not make that kind of money. So realize it's hard. It's going to be hard. Just prepare yourself for when it gets that way. What are you going to do? But if you go in thinking everything's going to be easy and it's going to be great and nothing but closing deals, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So be prepared that these challenges are going to happen. So when they do, you don't get down on yourself.
We got how do I avoid feature dumping when I finally get time with the surgeon?
So asking questions. It's that simple. Make it about the doctor. Don't mention your product. It's the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing to do. You could, sometimes doctors put you on the spot. Joe, what are you selling? Like I have most reps where they get nervous, they go, oh, my product is called the XYZ and it's for low back pain. And you give it to patients that are, suffering from RSD or, neuropathy or whatever the ailments are. And do you have any patients in your practice like that today, doctor? Like that's getting nervous and just spewing out information. You could just simply say, well, I have a product for low back pain, but before we get into that, doctor, I want to learn more about your practice. I want to learn more about your patients, and then you redirect the conversation that way and start asking questions. That'll get you away from just the product vomit, because believe me, guys, that doesn't work. The more that you ask questions and learn more about that doctor, and then you are positioning your product, you're doing all this to position your product to make it make it about the physician and not about you. When you just throw out features and benefits, you're making it about you and your product and your company. When you're asking tons of questions, you're making it about the physician. So let your manager know, I'm not going to mention product unless I absolutely have to on this call. I'm focusing on learning more about my customer. If they argue with that, have them call me, guys, because they don't know what they're doing. And most managers, they're great sales. They were great in sales. They got promoted for a reason. They get it. They shouldn't give you too much pushback with that. You should be learning more. So keep asking questions, and that'll prevent the product dump.
Is it normal to feel like I'm on call 24/7 and device early on?
100%. Every company that I worked at, they all describe it as you feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose. And you will. You're going to be in training learning, when you're in the OR and learning all the different products that you have or the different parts of your procedure. If you've never been in an OR, now you have to worry about not only getting to the account on time, you're dealing with vendor credentialing to even get access. You have to learn the OR staff. Who are you seeing when you walk in and you have a case? Who's the staff that's in the room where you got to introduce yourself? All the admin responsibilities that they're going to throw at you, learning the different products, learning the different company personnel that you're working with. I mean, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Just realize, guys, within a few months, you're going to get better and better and better, and it gets easier and easier. And that's when you become a better sales rep. At the beginning, you're going to be all over the place. It's okay. Don't think that you're the only one that feels that way. Every single rep has been in your shoes. The best reps, the ones that make over $1 million a year, they've been in your shoes at one time. So just understand, it's normal to feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose and you're overwhelmed. I promise you, in time, it gets better and easier and easier. So just realize the best piece of advice is realize you're not alone, and everyone goes through those same feelings.
Joe, I just switched from farmer to device. Are there any habits that I could bring over that will help me, and any that I should leave that could hurt me?
So the one of the big habits that a lot of pharma companies, they, at least when I was working in pharma, they really want you to get out there and they focus on call volume. So you're in and out of offices all day in pharma. You're going to get conversations that might last 30 seconds, that there is no conversation and they say they don't see reps, or that, you sit down for a half hour, an hour during a lunch. So all in between, but they focus a lot on a call volume. You got to get in front of a lot of doctors. And for me, when you're coming to device, it should be more about it's not about how many doctors you see every day. If you could see 20 doctors a day and have great conversations, yeah, that's awesome. But I would care more about the quality of each call. That's the most important thing. Focus on quality. If you only have one good call today, you only saw one doctor, but you see when you were speaking with them that they have the eyebrow lift more like, oh, wow, that's very interesting. Oh, I would definitely like to try this out. That's more valuable. That's more impactful than having 10, 20 conversations just because a doctor talked to you, but you didn't really move the needle further. So I would say that's the most important thing. Don't focus so much on call volume. Focus so much more on the quality of the calls that are really making an impact.
We got where do first year reps accidentally cross compliant lines most often?
I think the most important thing, can this product do that? Can I give it to this patient? And it's an off-label use. A lot of times you'll get reps they'll get excited that they had a sale. So they say, oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can give it to that patient. Would it work on this patient? Oh, yes, absolutely. Big red flag, guys, big no-no. You do not want to do that. If they have much more questions that are very clinical, especially on the pharma side, both sides really, you could bring in a medical science liaison, for people that aren't in the industry, MSLs, where they can have those off-label clinical conversations with the physicians, but don't be the guy, oh, absolutely, you can do that. You're going to be tempted. You're going to be tempted. There's times that I've had doctors that say, Joe, I got a patient right now in my office. I just stepped out of the exam room. I want to prescribe your drug. Can I give it to her? And you're going to be so tempted to say yes. You got to stay on label, guys, because again, it could be that one sale could feel good that day, but it could be job ending for you. And I've seen it happen. So stay on label uses and don't just say yes to get the deal.
Joe, are there any pre-brief mistakes with champions that cost votes?
Say that again? Sorry.
Are there any pre-brief mistakes with a champion that could cost votes?
I got to be honest, I don't even understand that question.
All
I
right.
apologize, whoever asked that, but I'll give it my best shot. I mean, brief notes that can cost you a champion. I mean, I think at the end of the day, champions, again, champions for you guys that don't know, that are physicians that love your product and want to push the usage either in their practice or at that hospital. They're essentially a big fan of your product. Okay, so getting back to brief notes, I mean, do your research about those physicians. Learn as much as you can about what's their key drivers, like we were talking about earlier. That's the best piece of advice that I can give for a champion, because just because they're a champion and they love your product, you don't want to start not caring about what their needs are. So you always want to have those notes on what do they really care about to keep developing that relationship.
All right. Are there any OR etiquette rules that new reps break that can quietly get them blacklisted?
Yeah, one of the key things that new reps do, they talk too much when they're in the OR. They feel that I have to be talking more and instructing everyone and kind of leading, like almost like a conductor, pointing here, pointing there. Oh, wait, so I just want to make sure you're not doing this. You're talking to scrub nurse that way, or the circulating nurse, telling the doctor, just giving, using that time to just sell. And you just, guys, shut up. Best piece of advice I can give. The best reps, the high performers, are talking less. They're cool. They're calm. They know what they're doing. They're not running around the operating room, like a nervous wreck. Who makes you feel more comfortable? Especially if you are on an airplane, and I mean, we've all been there where you hear the pilot's voice. They don't just happen to have that soothing voice and tone. They're obviously taught to speak that way. They can't get on the mic and say, "Hey guys, we got some heavy turbulent shit coming up. I don't. I just hope we're okay. But I had a lot of training, so we should be fine." And imagine if he's talking to you for 10 minutes about how the turbulence is going to be bad, but his training has really taught him or her to be a great pilot. Like, you could be like, "Oh my God, like this guy, they're making me nervous," as opposed to the calm pilot that just, we're going to hit a few bumps. Please put your seatbelts on. We'll get through this in a few minutes. It's the same way of being in the OR. When a problem happens, you're ready for it. You're calm. You got to have that steady hand. I mean, there's been hundreds of cases that my device wasn't working. There was a problem in my head. I'm like, I have no idea what's wrong right now. But there's a patient on the table. Your heart is pounding, but you be cool. Okay. So always be calm. Talk less is the best advice I can give. That doesn't mean if someone addresses you, you just sit there and quiet, like, oh, I was told to talk less. No, just be cool, have common courtesy, and just don't be, yelling and talking so much. Don't be a chatterbox in the cases. Nobody wants to hear that.
All right, we have. Let me scroll. I'm only a couple weeks in device sales. What are some outcomes that my manager expects from me in my first 30 days?
The first 30 days are going to make sure that you're understanding your product training, that you know your product. Typically that's the most important thing is, don't rush ahead, and because everyone wants to get in front of doctors, they want to sell. Take your time. Your first 30 days is learning about the product, learning about the SOPs that, for that company, learn about, what the expectations are of your manager, the company, just take it easy and relax and learn the basics first. And that's the product, the company policies, what they exactly want. And you want to align yourself with the company goals, so you're both achieving them.
All right, we have a question from LinkedIn. A little different spot from Tiffany. Thoughts on pivoting from healthcare finance to medical sales. Have you seen others do it?
Oh, absolutely, Tiffany. I mean, we've had with the Red Path Academy, we've helped thousands get placed from other industries. So healthcare finance, absolutely. Anyone in healthcare, that's a easy. There's a lot of transferable skills because, especially in finance, you understand the billing aspect. So we've had a lot of people on the billing side that understand, the insurance side of the business, which is a huge side of the business that a lot of reps have no clue about. They might have a sales background. They worked in B2B, have a clinical background, which is great. Those are all great things. But a lot of reps, they don't know about that, the financial side of it. And that's huge because a lot of these doctors, they're business owners. Trust me, their finances, that is one of the key things they care about. Of course, it's about their patient safety. But if they're not making money, that's a problem. So to understand the healthcare finance side, that is a huge, huge need, and a transferable, a skill, not even a transferable skill so much, but an additional skill that hiring managers would really want in their young, their new sales reps. So definitely there's been tons that have done that. Again, other backgrounds from waitering to busboys, bartenders, teachers, lawyers. I mean, you basically name it, we've helped them transition into the medical sales field. If you want more information, Tiffany, please message me and I could give you more information about the Rep Path Academy because this is exactly what we do, helping people to break in and then also joining our community as part of that academy where you're bouncing ideas not off of just me and the coaches, but also the other candidates that are going through some of the same challenges that you're going through to try to break in. So we could definitely talk more about that one-on-one. But yeah, we've helped tons of individuals from the healthcare finance space.
Okay, we have as a new rep, my there's a where did it go? Hold on. I lost it in my list. Scrolling through these comments. As a new rep, a device has a mid-case hiccup. What's the best way to handle it?
Yeah, and this again, it's like we were talking about earlier. It's being cool, being calm. It's hard as hell because no one knows what that feels like when you're in the operating room the first time by yourself. You don't have a trainer with you, you don't have a manager or another seasoned rep. You're alone the first time. They'll teach you this, and you lose 10 IQ points. And I have a story. I've talked about this in the past. When I started at Boston Scientific, they would tell me that, Joe, you're going to lose. I heard reps tell me, first case, you're going to lose 10 IQ points. And I'm like, how's that possible? Your IQ is your IQ. That's ridiculous. And when you're alone the first time, the heart's racing. You've done this procedure over and over. You feel very confident, but it's that nervous feeling, when you're seeing a patient on the table, the doctor there, the nursing staff, and now it's your part in the procedure. I remember the first time I had to open the spinal cord stimulator trial packaging and hand it off to the scrub nurse. In my head, I forgot and I thought I touched the sterile area within the packaging, but there were essentially two layers. You open it up, I'm allowed to touch that, and then you open it up a second time to the smaller inner packaging. That's what gets handed off to the nurse or the physician. I opened up that first package and froze. And in my head, I went, oh shit, I just touched sterile packaging. Like if you touch sterile product, that's it. You just cost the company money. And that's a huge, huge no-no. I was panicking. And then it was, only it was a couple seconds. And I realized, oh no, I didn't, I did it right. But it's that moment that you lose the IQ points. Everyone goes through that. So don't feel like you're an idiot, that I can't believe how come I don't know this? Why am I so nervous? This is going to happen every time. You just got to be calm, be cool. Don't do your best, no matter how much you're panicking, to not lose your cool and start bugging out and going, Doc, I don't know what to do. I mean, even if you have to go, doc, give me 1 sec. I'm just going to call our support desk because this is a unique issue or whatever you have to do, even if you have to do that, but be calm. That's the best advice I can give. It's easier said than done, and it's going to get easier and easier when you get that problem again. You're not going to be as nervous, but be prepared that things are going to come at you from left and right, and it's going to throw you off. Just try to maintain your calmness, your coolness, have that steady hand, and you'll be all right.
How do new reps typically misread power dynamics in hospital committees?
It's really just not understanding the what the dynamics are, what the hierarchy is, what everyone's role really is, and making assumptions that someone has more of a say or less of a say. So sometimes you can just think, oh, well, I'm going to go to the chief of the department because they 100% have all to say, the final say with getting new products on board. And that's not always the case. Sometimes, the chief could be involved, but there could be individuals that don't have a real title, but Dr. Smith or Dr. Jones is the one that you really have to see to get a new product to make it available or get it approved either through the VAC committee or through the P&T committee if it's in pharmaceuticals. So you don't want to make any assumptions on the importance of a physician within, or another hospital team member or a clinician, whoever it is. You always want to keep asking questions and find out exactly what the process is, whatever the dynamics are. Learn as much as you can and don't assume.
What's the bad response to off-label questions to avoid at all costs?
Answering them, that's the bad response. If it's off-label and you're answering them and say, yep, you could do it, that's the worst response you can give. Joe, can I use this off-label? Absolutely. It's a no-no, guys. You never know, and I've heard these horror stories from other reps where there's physicians that have positions within the FDA, or know individuals, for different regulation agencies or a part of the agency. They can test you. This happens at trade shows a lot, where doctors are coming up to your booth, they ask questions, and there's times there where there were members from regulation agencies where they would have their badge, because you're all wearing name badges at these events. They could have it turned, and that happens sometimes. They got the lanyard, and sometimes as you're walking, it turns so you can't see. It's got the backside of the name tag. Sometimes they do that on purpose, and they go into reps and test them, to see if to get you in trouble. You might think this is crazy, guys, but they've done this, and ask you an off-label question. You answer it, you're in trouble. So at a trade show, you typically will have an MSL that's there. So when you get that question, go, that's an off-label question. Let me get one of the MSLs to answer that for you. They're allowed to have those conversations. You're not. So the best answer is, I will find out for you, but as of right now, no, I cannot approve you using that because that is an off-label use. That's the safest answer. You can get someone to have a conversation with them that has the credentials to do so clinically, but do not say yes or absolutely. That's the worst thing you can do.
We got a couple more. Is there a wrong time to bring in a clinical specialist?
Well, I think what you're asking in terms of clinical specialist, just to make everyone know the difference that's new on this call. So clinical specialist typically in the medical is a position on the medical device side, where their primary role is to focus on case coverage and help in the clinical aspects, maybe meeting with patients, but it's focused more clinically and not sales related. So they help the sales rep, whoever the territory manager is, work that territory. Their support, their sales support, clinical support for that territory manager. They wouldn't really be someone that you're going to bring in. You probably mean, I don't know who asked this question, but you probably mean like an MSL, some clinical support person where I would bring them in because there's usually only one for like a region. These individuals are flying all around the country. It's not like you have someone that, I could bring them in later on this afternoon. No, it doesn't always work that way, guys. So these individuals are busy and they're usually covering huge geographies. I would have the conversation first, see what the questions are, and then if it is an off-label use or something that you're not allowed to talk about and you have to bring them in, then I would bring them in only after those questions are asked or those demands are asked. Because you also want to clarify with the doctor, I could have an MSL come out next week or at whatever date. Would you like that? Because you don't want to have MSLs flying out, and meanwhile, the doctor just doesn't even remember asking the question, and you just spent all that money to get that MSL out there, and it really wasn't that important. So you want to make sure you get those questions first, and then you can bring out those clinical expertise.
I got one more question for you, Joe.
Awesome.
I'm sure a lot of new reps have been through this, but it's your first 45 days in, and the territory seems to be ice cold. Joe, what's your 2-week plan?
Yeah, I mean that is number one. This is where you got to have your manager involved. No one's expected to make such an immediate impact. You want to see and take a self evaluation, and also speaking with either your manager or another, like we talked about, that mentor, high performer on your team, where you start walking through, this is what I'm currently doing. Try to figure out what's wrong. Is it your messaging? Is it your territory routing? Are you going to the wrong doctors? I mean, I've done this. You go to doctors just because they're busy or they prescribe a lot of medications. You think that they're going to also do a lot of your procedure. It doesn't always work that way, guys. So you have to make sure that you're focusing on the right customers, because if you're calling on the wrong customers that don't even do that procedure or don't even prescribe that drug, then you're going to waste your time. So you got to evaluate all that, get your manager involved, get whoever your mentor is involved to help you work through that. And that's what the managers are paid to do, guys. They're there to help you grow. So these are the situations that don't be like, oh, I'm failing, I don't want to get my manager involved. First of all, if your manager knows by your numbers how you're doing, and that's the most important thing. So be proactive. The best piece of advice I can give with this, if you feel like you're falling short, don't wait for your manager to come to you. Go to your manager first and say, I'm disappointed in my results. Here's what I'm doing. I would love to get your feedback and expertise on how I can improve on this immediately. Nip it in the bud right away, guys, sooner rather than later, because you don't want your manager to be the one that's coming to you. It's always better to be proactive and be the one that's saying, I need help, being humble, and I want to fix it. Every manager is going to love that, guys. Even when you're struggling, they get it, especially at the beginning. They get it. But show that initiative that you want to fix the problem.
Well, that's all I got for you today, Joe.
Awesome. Well, guys, that was excellent questions. Thank you, James, for handling all those. I appreciate it.
Always.
And thank you, buddy. And again, guys, moving forward, any of you on this call, that you have questions, you want to break into this industry, the Rep Path Academy, guys, is the way to do it. We have online modules, quizzes, assignments that you could take at your own pace. There's no time limit. We'll work with you as long as it takes to get you into the industry. You also have access to multiple calls a week where we do group calls that gives you access to our community. So you'll be able to bounce ideas off one another, which is great. You have access to the coaches to help you with any of the challenges you're having. But please reach out. We'll get you that information and get you signed up right away. And also, again, guys, anybody that's on the call that is a lobby member and wants to get involved in the Red Path Academy, additional coaching services, please feel free to reach out to me and give the promo code Licata, Licata, to give you additional discounts. And that's it, guys. Again, thank you again for joining us. We'll be here every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and look forward to you next time, guys. Have a great week.